Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is the third session of 4 in our series of insides and outsides, outer shells, hidden sparks, divine potential. And today we're going to be exploring our humanness, our bodies and beings, and how this fits into what we've been exploring of Rabbi Isaac Luria's understanding or insight into all of existence as God dressed up, as I've been saying, God in drag, the limitless divine garbed in material reality. Before we get there, let's put up the bracha for Jewish learning. What a gift it is to access teachings to inspire and guide us. So please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, let's dive. You ready to dive? Let's dive. Okay, let's put up the text. I find it helpful. Hopefully you also find it helpful to have a synthesis, just a reminder of what we were looking at from the very first class, really sort of the creation story according to Lurianic Kabbalah, 16th century Rabbi Isaac Luria, and his vision of all of existence, of divine reality. I wonder if somebody could read out loud the summary.
According to the 16th century mystic Rabbi Isaac Luria, a cosmic catastrophe took place at the time of creation. Ein Sof, literally that which has no end, the name of total divine unity in which nothing other than divine oneness can exist, contracted itself, tzum, making an open or empty space, halal panui, devoid of God, as it were. Because nothing can exist that is truly devoid of God, the divine emanated divine light into that space, contained in vessels, kelim. The divine light, however, was too powerful and caused the vessels to shatter, shevirat hakelim, resulting in the creation of the physical world, filled with shards, husks, shells, kelipot, with divine sparks, nitzotzot, trapped within them. Sometimes these kelipot are described as the evil and darkness of the world. In other descriptions, the nitzotzot are hidden in all of the natural world, in human beings and in experiences. It is the ongoing task of the Jewish people to redeem these sparks wherever they are found, to release them from the shells in which they're encased, and to restore them to their divine source, repairing the fractured divine and bringing redemption to the world. The exile of the Jewish people, then, is a necessary part of seeking out and redeeming the sparks, nitzotzot. Sin causes the sparks to remain hidden in the world, while mitzvot, with the right mystical intentions, reveal and release these hidden sparks.
Great, thank you. And it's useful for us to pull up the map of the Sfirot. So with this image of Ein Sof as the divine reality filling all that is, undifferentiated, unchanging, limitless, and then creating that halal panui, that open space, empty space, and the divine then sending into that space refracted divine light through these emanations, these 10 sfirot, where we see right up at the top, the 10 sfirot, Ein Sof being above and around all of this, Keter being closest to that limitless divine, and then moving down through Chokhmah and Bina, those two emanations also being close to the undifferentiated divine oneness. And in Bina, we're going to be looking at the quality of Bina more closely. It's within Bina that mysterious desire and will arose to create. The seed within this womb of divine unity, stirring and arousing the desire for creation. And then extending out further from that are these lower 7, chesed, expansive love and loving, gvura or din, judgment, discernment, tiferet, balance. And this is, tiferet is also Kadosh Baruch Hu, the name of God that is the Holy Blessed One. Netzach and Hod, these aspects of splendor and eternity or longevity. Yesod, last time we were talking about the masculine qualities associated with Yesod, with foundation, and Shekhinah, the feminine indwelling presence, also referred to as the community of Israel, or Malchut, sovereignty, presence. So this map we'll come back to in our learning today, but just to have this sense that then down here at the bottom beneath Shekhinah is where material reality comes into being. If Ein Sof were to fill that empty space with Ein Sof again, it would collapse, nothing could exist. But it's by God by the limitless divine titrating God's self, refracting and distilling and limiting the divine fullness. There can be a material reality, and in that material reality, we can also experience these various divine qualities because they're not in their full intensity. So what we're going to be looking at today is a commentary, a Kabbalistic commentary on the very beginning of the story of Abraham, who's not even Abraham yet. He's Avram, and that will be important in the interpretation we're going to look at. So the verse from the Torah says, Vayomer Adonai el Avram, lech lecha, מארצך וממולדתך ומבית אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך. Yud-He Vav-He, Adonai said to Avram, Lech lecha. That phrasing is going to be very important. Lech lecha, go you forth. Many of our commentators through generations have pointed to those words and have said, why doesn't it just say lech, go, but lech lecha, which can mean go for yourself, go toward yourself, might be more emphatic, hey, get up and go, lech lecha. And then we have me'artzecha, from your land, umimoladetcha, and from your birthplace, umibeit avicha, and from your father's house, el haaretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you. So just I want to point out a few things here based on the pshat, a simple reading of the text. Avram is being asked to leave where he's been living. But interestingly, it's given 3 different terms. Leave your land, leave your birthplace, leave your father's house. And there's much commentary, of course, as is the Jewish way, on what each term means. If he's leaving Ur Kasdim, Ur of the Chaldeans, where his family's been living, where he was born, why doesn't it just say one term? Leave your land, or leave where you are. But let's note, it's 3 different qualities, 3 different experiences. Your physical land, perhaps, your birthplace, something about birth and family and kinfolk, and your father's house, something directly about parents and lineage and all that he's leaving. And he's being asked to go to an undefined designation, El haaretz asher ar'eka, to the land that I will show you, I Adonai. I want us to note that this is Judaism's sort of core journey story. And we're going to turn now to the Zohar, to the foundational text of Kabbalah from the 13th century Spain, and look at a Kabbalistic reading of what seems like a story about an ancient ancestor of ours hearing a divine voice and being called to get up and go. Let's see. Would somebody begin with just the first paragraph? It is taught. John, thank you.
It is taught in the potency of the will of the king, Sphira of Bina, he planted one great and strong tree, Zeir Anpin, the lesser face. This is the revealed aspect of God in the Sphirot of Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Hod, and Yesod, those centered in Tiferet.
Okay, let's pause here. So it's taught that in the potency of the will of the king, he planted one great and strong tree. Can we, Juliet, can you pull up the Sphirot again? Beautiful. So here we have sort of mythic language, talking about the Sphirot. It is taught that in the will of the king, which is Binah, in the womb, in this quality or dimension of the beginning to be refracted divine. Let me just look at the text at the same time. In the potency of the will of the king. What beautiful words. In the potency of the will. So there is will, there is desire. The Hebrew ratzon is a sense of both will and desire unified, and contains tremendous potential and power. He planted one great and strong tree. So this whole system of the Sfirot is often called Eitz Chaim, a tree of life. It's referred to with this imagery of the king of a tree, and the tree is these lower Sfirot from Chesed and Gevura down. One of the Zohar's other terms for those lower Sfirot is Zeir Anpin, the lesser face, between Chesed and Gevura and just to Yesod. So that unity of 6. And the Shekhinah will be related to as a different aspect in intimate connection. Okay, so let's go back to the text. So this is setting up this extension of qualities, aspects of the divine, and God's process of beginning to create. First, by creating revealed aspects of the divinity itself, of God itself. Okay, can you continue, John?
This tree is planted among the celestial saplings, all the Sphirot within Bina, surrounded by 12 boundaries. Its roots extend in all 4 directions. 500 parsangs is its length. The needs of all living things within this domain are dependent on this tree.
Okay. So just to there, we don't have to get into all of the details of what are the boundaries and the length, 500 parsangs, but to have a sense that this from Bina, from this place of very beginning, of will awakened and desire awakened, this tree is planted, issues forth, its roots extending in all directions, and the needs of all living things are dependent on this tree. All of existence is dependent on this tree. Okay, would you continue?
When it awakens, all is aroused with it. There is nothing that is divorced from its will. They all then are of one desire with it. Standing strong from above, it descends in its journey into the sea. From it, the sea is filled. It is the source of all flowing waters, all primordial waters spread out beneath it. The watering of the garden is dependent on it.
Beautiful. What do you get from this paragraph? When it awakens, all is aroused with it. There is nothing that is divorced from its will. They all then are of one desire with it. Standing strong from above, it descends in its journey into the sea. From it, the sea is filled. It is the source of all flowing waters, all primordial waters spread out beneath it. The watering of the garden is dependent on it. What do you think the garden is?
Earth.
Pardon?
Earth.
Earth. I think we're getting toward Earth, but it's the place, the Garden of Eden, as the sort of primordial beginning of existence. So we're not quite at the into the earth stage, but it is the essential place where life is going to begin. And there's this constant flow. You saw on the map, there are all these lines pointing in various directions, connecting all the sfirot. So there we have this descent into the sea and this flow, all the flowing waters pouring forth from it. And Juliet just wrote, oh, I see you're putting the text in the chat as well. Great. So let's continue. Now it's going to start getting juicy.
All souls of the world fly from it, from this great tree. These souls enter the garden to descend into this world. As the soul departs, she is blessed with 7 blessings, so as to become a father to the body and to become elevated in the celestial image, as it is written. And God said to Avram, "This is the most sublime part of the soul, Father, to the body. Elevate it to the level of the celestial image." And Ram, I don't understand a thing in what I read.
Great. So let's break it down. So first of all souls of the world fly from this tree. These souls enter the garden to descend into this world. What's that saying?
It's saying that so all the souls are up there with Hashem, and He says Lech Lecha. That's the beginning of the descent of the soul, and then the soul begins to go down through the Sefirot, and it makes its way down sphere by sphere, and then it comes into a human body, and as it comes in to the womb, it knows everything for its purpose and everything that it's here for its mission and for what it's supposed to do here. And then just before it's born into the on this plane, just before it's born, the angel kisses it just over its lip, and it forgets. And everything here on this world is a process of remembering. And our soul is still guiding us. It's like our footsteps, where we go, who we meet. Like, it's no accident that we're here together in this class. We're here it's no accident that we're here. It's no accident that I found you, that I called here, that you, like, who we're to meet, the places we're to go. Those are all guided so that we can raise the holy sparks from those places to elevate them back up. So you're descending for the purpose of then ascending. You come all the way down, and then your soul longs to go up and to return. So Lech Lecha starts the descent. That's what it means.
Beautiful. And you're also beautifully weaving in some other teachings that you know from other contexts that will surface in here. But first, just taking the beginning of what you were saying, we're engaging in an interpretation of this biblical story that suddenly is not just about a human individual a long, long time ago, or a made-up myth of our beginnings, hearing a divine voice saying, Lech Lecha, leave your house, lock the door, grab your bags, walk out, and start traveling on a physical journey to a different physical place. This Lech Lecha, go forth, is what every soul experiences when it is in the upper realms, when it's part of the divine oneness and this tree of life, this tree of divine, ever moving, ever dynamic qualities and energies. All souls are on this tree. I love that image. I don't know if you have the experience of walking by certain trees sometimes, and they're just filled with birds singing. That's the image that I have. There can be 27 other trees that I walk past and it's quiet, but somehow they all know how to hang out on this one tree, and they're singing, 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 singing. So all souls that ever were, that ever will be, are all on this tree of life. So all souls of the world fly from it, from the great tree. These souls enter the garden to descend into the world. So there's some incremental process of the souls being on this tree of life, merged with the divine. They sort of move down. They move in distance from the divine oneness, making their way toward material reality. But first, sort of the garden seems to be a transition place in order to descend into this world. And then what happens? As the soul departs, she's blessed with 7 blessings. Anyone want to guess what the 7 blessings might be? I'm not certain about this, but this is my inclination, my sense, that they are the 7 sfirot. They're the qualities from chesed and gevura, the experiences of expansive loving kindness, divine love, gevura, tiferet, moving down those lower 7 levels of this tree of life, are given as blessings to that soul, to have the ability to connect with them, to seek them out. So as to become, now here's going to be a very, I love commentary, a play on words that is going to crack open the name Avram to not just be some guy's proper name, to actually reveal the sacred process of all souls. Let's check it out. these 7 blessings. Oops, where did it go? So as to become a father to the body. How do you say father in Hebrew? Av. Abba is sort of father, daddy, sort of extended, but Av is short for father. So as to become a father to the body, to become elevated, ram. So it's not the word ram there, the English word, it's Hebrew. Av ram is to become a father to the body, to become elevated in the celestial image. Because it says right there in Torah, and God said to Avram, Lech lecha, get up and go. But before you go, soul, into the physical world, I want to teach you that you can be an Avram. Through connection with the 7 sfirot, your soul is going to remember that connection and access those qualities so that even as you're about to be in a physical body, in this earthly plane that is in which the divine is masked and hidden and covered in klipot, in these outer shells, you will still be able to be an Av, sort of an overarching father or a parent to that elevated, to that Ram image of the divine. Is that part making sense? Getting there, starting to, okay, what? This is complicated. I do want to say, as we're going to just keep chipping at it in different ways, to understand this biblical story, these few verses of what looks like a human journey is actually telling us is this cosmic opening into understanding the journey of all souls into embodiment. And what it will take for us to not lose our soul connection just because we become physical beings in this world. But how to stay connected to the soul that is always part of the divine reality. But this klipa, this shell of human bodiness, can easily forget and get lost. But when the soul is about to enter the body, God says, hold on. I want to give you tools. I want to give you the capacity to actually stay connected and to, connected not just with the reality of your soul's origin, but all the ways that it can help you in this physical life to elevate, to lift up Ram, material reality into spiritual aliveness. How are we doing?
As the soul is about to descend into this world, the Blessed Holy One holds her to an oath to keep the commandments of the Torah, to do God's will. And the Holy One gives her 100 keys of blessing for every day to complete the upper rungs that are the numerical equivalent of Lech Lecha, 50 plus 50, for they have all been given to her to be used for the restoration and beautifying of the garden, to work it and guard it.
Great.
Okay.
Le'ovda u'leshomra.
Thank.
Beautiful. So there's a lot more to our story here. The soul, in Hebrew, all nouns are gendered. So the soul, neshama, is feminine. So that's why it says her here. So as the soul is about to descend into the world, what does Kadosh Baruch Hu, what does the Holy Blessed One do? God holds her, the soul, to an oath. Okay, soul, you're about to be encased in an outer shell of physical body and being, but you have to promise that you will follow the mitzvot. You will align yourself with divine will. Let's remember, we had the first glimpse of divine will up in Binah, that will and desire to create all of existence. The neshama also has will that is called upon to awaken in action, in following the mitzvot. And the Holy One, I love this image, the Holy One gives her 100 keys of blessing for every day. This is commenting on, playing on, and referring to an earlier rabbinic teaching that says that we are called upon to say 100 blessings a day. I won't go into the source of that. It's a play on words of well, I'm starting to go into it. It's okay. 100 blessings a day. And in the rabbinic text, it simply says, do that. Make sure you say 100 blessings a day. Here, they are keys for the soul. Every day you have 100 keys of blessing to complete the upper rungs. So in other words, to sort of fulfill and move in relationship with this elevated soul being. These keys are your access. And here the Zohar is engaging in what's called Gematria. There's an equivalency between letters and numbers. So the letter Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, has the numerical value of 1. The letter Bet, 2, and so on. So one interpretive tool that we often see used, particularly in mystical teachings, but sometimes in medieval and rabbinic teachings as well, taking words from Torah and saying, what does this word add up to? And how is that meaningful? So it happens to be that Lech Lecha adds up to 100, 50 plus 50. So the Lech Lecha, the go forth, that the divine says to the souls on the tree of life, is not just a go forth, but go forth with 100 keys of blessing. Isn't that cool? I find that really like, wow. Okay, that is totally transforming the story of Avram leaving his home. But also, we're starting to get a way of looking at the mitzvot, Jewish practice, not just as a system of here's what you're supposed to do, or here is a set of tools for gratitude, for being in relationship with wonder, but actually for elevating the soul and connecting it to its roots. And these are used, look at this phrase, for the restoration and beautifying of the garden. For restoring and beautifying that realm where the souls come into before they become garbed in bodies. And again, playing with what's in the Genesis text, Adam and Eve, placed in the Garden of Eden, have the responsibility le'ovda u'leshomra, to work it and guard it, or sometimes it's translated as to till it and tend it. That they too were not two human beings in an earthly garden, But this is the garden of the beginning of existence. And there is a process of beautifying that garden, restoring it to its full potency. So souls coming down and through can be nourished by it and then enter the physical world. And now the commentary of Zohar adds more specificity. So we have the Lech Lecha and these three phrases, from your land. So leave your land, that means leave the Garden of Eden, this primordial transformation station from the purely spiritual into the embodied. From your birthplace, this is the corpus that is called the Tree of Life, which is the 12 celestial tribes. So leave the garden, leave the Tree of Life, and from your father's home, this is Shekhinah. So the lowest sphira, divine emanation, the one that is that we have access to in this physical world. Your father, this is the Holy Blessed One. As it's, just pause there for a second. So your father's home, there are two divine qualities right there. There's the home and there's your father. So what is it? It's the masculine and feminine. It's the Kadosh Baruch Hu, that quality usually associated with Tiferet, and Shekhinah, the feminine, their unity, you're also leaving that divine unified source. To the land that I will show you refers to this world to which the soul is sent. So let's take the text down. Let's see, what is this evoking for you? What is still unclear? It's okay if a lot of it is still unclear, but what do you make of these images? John?
It evokes sort of a feeling of that you can get wrapped up in the minutiae of your own life, and but this sort of reveals the grand design. Like there is a grand design, there's a big picture, and it's a reminder, to take a step back and sort of recalibrate, or there's these, it's useful to have images and a big picture, I think, to make use of in practical ways. Like just the idea of 100 blessings, or the realms. So it sort of adds meaning to think that you're infused with all this divine sources that have flowed to the present moment through all these millennia. It's sort of empowering, and it feels like it brings a new way of looking at the potential we all hold.
Beautiful. I heard you say a few things. One, what you just said about potential is beautiful, that the sort of a mirroring of the potential within the divine, sort of the unified divine, that potential is what shifted divine reality from the unchanging expansive to the possibility of shift and change and creation and material existence coming into being, and that potential is in us as well. And I also heard you, you said a number of things, but I particularly want to lift up where our awareness often spends its time and energy is in the busy, the everything that I need to do in my daily life. And what are the possibilities when we, whether by imagination or opening to a different way of thinking, sensing, experiencing, you use the image of, it makes the picture so much bigger. Suddenly, I'm not just this person of flesh and bone running around trying to do what I need to do, but I'm part of a cosmic story of sacred meaning and import. And I can activate that part. This 100 keys of blessing. I'm thinking suddenly of those old, beautiful keys, the ones that are long and have gorgeous shaped, I don't know what that part is called, but that goes into locks and opening these doors. Every time I say a blessing, I access the divine channel from the blessing over what I'm about to eat, the blessing of putting on a talit, that opens the door all the way up through this divine energy, this into the tree of life, into the garden. It's right there and accessible always if I use the key.
So beautiful.
Chaya, did you want to say more?
I just wanted to say just one sentence, if it's okay.
Yes, please.
I just love how you teach. I can't even explain how much I love it. It just makes my soul sing. It just does. But in the Tanya, it says that our soul it's a piece of God that lives within us, and that Hashem blew this piece of Himself into us, and that our soul is of the divine, and so it's like we're divine beings, but we're just here for this short time in a body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it changes everything when I think of it that way. You're here on a spiritual mission, and it just kind of just adds a different depth and quality to your life.
Beautiful, thank you. We're actually going to look at the Tanya, a later rabbinic, a later Kabbalistic and mystical text. But before we turn to that, I want to see if there are any other comments, because that'll pick up nicely on what Chaya just shared. You're also welcome to say if this doesn't resonate for you, and anything about that. We get to look at different images for relating to being alive in this moment and the choices that we want to make about how we view our experiences and the world around us. My curiosity in this whole theme of outer shells and inner sparks is guiding us to not be limited by the surface of things, not be limited by what we see on the outside. And what are the ways of accessing the inner depths? And what does it yield for us? How does it open different ways of encountering the delights of this world, the pain or suffering of this world? How do these different lenses that we might put on give us better tools for navigating this life and seeing it perhaps beyond the limits that may be there currently? Esther.
Yeah, I'm experiencing it differently, I think, from other people who have spoken. And I wrote down, I just wrote a sentence. It's not even a sentence, really. But what it evokes for me, what it makes me think about is the beauty and the history and the complexity and the need for human storytelling and the search for meaning. So it's like the history of storytelling, of human storytelling for me. And that fascinates me more than the spiritual layers, I think.
Beautiful. There's so much in storytelling. The stories we tell orient us, and their narratives, their metaphors offer us richness for different ways of experiencing. Beautiful. Let's turn to the Tanya text, to another piece, giving us further language. So this is from 1796. So this is moving into the Hasidic movement. Kabbalah being sort of an earlier several schools and bodies of Jewish mystical literature. The Zohar from the 13th century being the foundational text of Kabbalah. And then moving into Chassidut, Hasidic literature and the Hasidic movements drew in Kabbalah and then took it in some fresh directions, sort of revitalizing the capacity of the human being to seek out the divine in all of experience. Would somebody else read?
These 600,000 particular souls, however, are roots, and like a root from which grow numerous branches, each root soul subdivides into 600,000 sparks, each spark being one neshama.
Okay, pause there. Does anybody know where this reference to 600,000 souls comes from? You win the big prize if you can guess. It is a reference to the number of people who left Egypt. So 600,000 souls leave the place of constriction, the Meitzar, the narrowness of Mitzrayim, the word for ancient Egypt. So here too will be reference to, there's an ancient story, perhaps history, perhaps mythic narrative, but through the eyes of mysticism, is not just a story of something that happened a long time ago, but is a telling of soul reality, divine reality. So these 600,000 particular souls leaving Mitzrayim, leaving ancient Egypt or the place of constriction, however, are roots. And like a root from which grow numerous branches, each root soul subdivides into 600,000 sparks. So everyone who left Mitzrayim was not just a human, it was a core, a root soul, out of which emerge all these branches, each one into 600,000 sparks, and each spark being one neshama. That beautiful word for soul, neshama. There are actually many different words, sort of 5 kinds of soul. Neshama being sort of the most divine element. Okay, Jacqueline, would you continue?
Similarly, with the nefesh and ruach in each of the 4 worlds, Atzilut, Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, in each of these 4 worlds are found all 3 soul levels. Nefesh, from the world of Asiya, lowest world, and representing and the great concealment of God, Ruach from the world of Yetzirah, and Neshama from the world of Beriah.
So here there's discussion of three different levels of soul: nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And each of those levels correspond to three of the four worlds. If those who were here in previous sessions, from that map of the Sfirot, there's a further division or grouping according to different realms. So Shekhinah, and sort of the lowest rung, the rung that we can most directly experience, the divine in this world, even in concealed form, is the world of Asiyah, the world of doing. And that's associated, that's connected with the nefesh, this word of nefesh. The next soul level up is ruach, sometimes translated as spirit, that's connected with the world of Yetzirah. That's sort of the next grouping up of aspects of the divine that are a little more revealed, a little more less boundaried or hidden. And then the highest, neshama, where the divine comes through with the most clarity. And that's connected with the realm of Bria. Okay, continue.
Though it is indeed a great descent, a veritable exile for the soul, for even if it becomes in this world a perfect tzaddik, serving God with fear and abundant love of delights, it will not attain to the quality of its attachment to God with fear and love that the soul experienced prior to its descent into this corporal world, nor even to a fraction of its earlier fear and love. In fact, there is no comparison or similarity whatever between them, between the love and fear of God experienced by a soul on earth and that of the soul above. For as is obvious to every intelligent person, the body could not bear a love and fear of such intensity as the soul experienced above in the spiritual realms.
Great. Pause here. What's this section saying?
Well, it seems that there's a sort of divide between body and soul here, and where it says that the body cannot bear the intensity of the soul.
Great. What else? There's some kind of divide, something that happens when we're in embodied form, although the soul is present. It's different from what?
Well, it says I guess the body cannot experience the attachment to God.
At least not to the extent.
That the soul,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that the soul did prior to its descent.
Aha. So when the soul was unified in the tree of life, in the fullness of divine reality, it's love, and the English word fear is so limited. The Hebrew is yira'ah, sort of more awe than fear, but it has a trembling element to it. So in that state of total soulness, it experienced, your soul, your own soul, and every other soul experienced the fullness of love and awe of the divine. But as soon as we become embodied in this physical form, our bodies cannot bear that divine fullness. This is a container. It's limited. It It knows through tactile sensations and senses, and it has limits. And so even if one becomes a perfect tzaddik, and one spends one's entire life focused on looking for and connecting deeply with divine love and awe, that's still sort of a drop of experience connected to what was in that divine, purely divine realm. But how good to know, how valuable to know that our soul experienced that fullness. That maybe there is some remaining knowledge even when we're in this embodied form. Let's read a little bit more.
Its descent into this world to be clothed in a body and vital soul, nefesh, unit, is for the sole purpose of perfecting them, to separate them from the evil of the three impure kalipot, shells, husks, by observing the 365 prohibitions and their offshoots, and to elevate his vital soul together with the portion of the world at large that belongs to it, binding and uniting them with the Ein Sof light, which he draws into them by performing the 248 positive mitzvot through the agency of the vital soul, since the vital soul is the one that performs all mitzvot involving action, that the divine soul, neshama, can activate the body in performance of the mitzvot only by way of the vital soul.
Beautiful. So there's a lot in this section. Can you scroll, to the top there? What are you hearing here?
One of the things I question is when we talk about the soul, talking about a new spirit, a new person, is that revolving from someone who's died? I'm not sure if it's a brand new being or if it's, the circle of life.
Beautiful question. This part of the text is not specifying, is not making that clear, but it is clear that we are all from those original souls that left Egypt. And I think that's a very important and I find compelling image, that every single soul has branched out from the souls of those who had been enslaved and liberated. And that language of root souls and subsequent souls all connected to those root souls evokes a sense of continuity and evolution, and that all of those souls had their original home in the tree of life, in divine unity, in being absorbed in divine light. And then we have this paragraph about the descent into the world to be clothed. Now, this is interesting. Those, I would say, the higher soul or divine soul of neshama, even the soul has to be garbed in a different kind of soul, in the nefesh hachiyunit. I like this English translation, vital soul. It's a form of soul that connects with divinity by being activated. It has to do things. And we may think of just the body as the part that is involved in action, but it's actually the nefesh hachiyunit, the vital soul, that also has to get activated. And we'll see that it's through mitzvot, through conscious Jewish action, through the commandments, that both the body and this nefesh, this level of sort of soul that garbs the neshama, the higher soul or divine soul, all activated together. And that those are here on this earth to be perfected, to be refined. So here we have more around the klipot, the shells, and the sparks. So it's for the sole purpose of perfecting them, to separate them from the evil of the klipot. So there are klipot all around us, these shells, these surfaces and fragments of evil. And what do? Well, first there's reference to 365 prohibitions. And we also have, those are the thou shalt nots, the don't do, the refraining from, self-restraint, and 248 positive mitzvot, the do-its. Where do we get these numbers from? 365 and 248? What do they add up to? 613. That's how many mitzvot in rabbinic understanding that we have. And they're divided by the earlier rabbis into 365 days of the solar year. And they say 248 parts of the body. So the mitzvot, the both self-restraint and the activated doing, connect with all of time, the whole self. In this Hasidic understanding, the thou shalt not mitzvot help separate from the klipot. So when I don't kill someone, when I don't break Shabbat, when I don't steal, that the hold of the klipot begins to release. There's a separation process, and it elevates the vital soul together with, listen to this, the portion of the world at large that belongs to it, binding and uniting them with the Or Ein Sof, the Ein Sof light, which the person draws into them by performing the positive mitzvot. So there's this process of refraining from, elevating the soul, and that the soul is connected with parts of the world that soul is there in order to release those sparks and unite them with this, to draw down the limitless divine light, so that we're starting to restore divine unity from that ever refracted, shattered, hidden quality to discovered, liberated, and reunited sparks. Binding and uniting them with the Ein Sof light, which he draws into them by performing all of the positive mitzvot through the agency of the vital soul, since the vital soul is the one that performs the mitzvot involving action, that the divine soul, the neshama, can activate the body in performance of the mitzvot only by way of the vital soul. So it's sort of like the divine soul is saying, you need to do something, lower soul, so that the Ein Sof will pour down and through, and the vital soul activates the body to put on a talit, to light Shabbat candles, to say 100 blessings a day, so that the husks can be separated and the sparks can be released and the divine flow can pour down. What do you think of that as the way of looking at any of the Jewish practices? You'll never eat a piece of matzah the same way.
I have always wondered why so many mitzvot, why so many requirements, and I think it just seems impossible to keep all of them. Why set that up? Why is such a high bar?
That's such a good question, because it is a challenge. And can anybody observe all of the mitzvot? I hold that with a great deal of respect. I think some of the ways that I, who does not observe all the mitzvot either, what I find interesting and compelling here is, first of all, the whole kind of mapping of the mitzvot related to 365 days of the year and 248 parts of the body. So first of all, that mapping gives me access to thinking of the mitzvot as how I everything that I do with my body can have elevated significance or conscious, that everything I do can have conscious, sacred purpose and intentionality. And every moment of my life can have an intention of, I am here to elevate it, to connect it with sacred purpose. So while it is about each specific action, there's something about this map that I find really helpful, that it brings my awareness into all of time and everything I do with my body. So that's possibly one way of connecting to it. I think the idea, one of the core orientations of mitzvot is that everything that we do, that the mitzvot are asking us to bring attention to everything that we do. That saying a blessing, seeing a commandment in all these different actions. I guess I'm repeating myself, but it's a language, it's a technology of elevating, of consciousness raising. And I think there, it's important for us to name that there are dangers of it becoming rote and habit without it having those intentions, that it can feel constrictive instead of, its meaning to crack us open into something deeply connected, vast, purposeful, but it can be cumbersome. So how do we keep a relationship with those intentions? Esther?
I think that's a beautiful explanation, but I also think sets Jews up for failure in a way, because who can do that? So why bother? Who can do all that? So why bother? And in a way, somewhere there's a message saying, well, if you can't do all of that, then you might as well just forget it.
I know so many Jews who have that message, but I don't know where it comes from, because there's nothing in Judaism that says if you can't do it all, don't bother. built into this whole process is also tshuva, is return. That every moment we do the best we can, and then we can say, how might I want to grow next? What's the next piece of repairing, shifting, refocusing that I can do? That we are always in that growth process. So whatever the voices are that are there, I encourage us to hear these texts as inviting participation and engagement with the practice, and seeing where it leads us. That each mitzvah can stand in its own right as, how is this a doorway to elevate my vital soul, to access that divine reality from which I came through very concrete actions. So to do our best to shush the voice that says it's all or nothing, because I don't think that's actually in Judaism. I think it developed from our fears or what our communities have done with tightness around the mitzvot. That's how I want to propose it anyway.
But is there any place that I haven't seen it where it says do some, you don't have to do all of them, or it's a holy act to do some mitzvot?
It's less that it says, pick and choose, and it's more that it says no one is perfect. We are all in a process of growth, and the process of turning and returning is, according to rabbinic understanding, was created before the world itself was created. That the process of tshuva, of refining and returning, comes even before human life itself or before creation. And so I hear in that, give up on perfection. These mitzvot are, they're framed as commandment, as call, but the word mitzvah also means to bind together. And so they're our toolkit for connection. Esther.
Yeah, I think it's also, fitting in, you sort of have answered this already, but fitting in with that, I think, is the importance of constant challenge. That part of what keeps us alive, part of what keeps us human is being challenged and being motivated by those challenges, and that's a constant thing. It never ends. It's part of the essence of being alive. So that's how I'm. So challenges and the importance of them. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think something that is useful and helpful is that the dynamic of challenge, hey self, hey humans, keep growing, that there are concrete steps for that. So it's not just sort of left open, well, what self-help books can I read to help me move forward? Self-help books are helpful to the extent that they're helpful, but that these practices are there to train our hearts, our minds, our physical actions, our bodies, all unified and integrated. And we don't have to make it up. We already have these exercises to strengthen, to grow with, as our challenge, to grow our capacity. Marilyn, you looked like you had a hand up.
I guess my interpretation of the mitzvot was more to summarize and to kind of look at your life as being a kind, generous, and good person. And so each of those acts are very specific. But as the world evolves, I think if you live a pure life and you specify what's meaningful to you personally, you are fulfilling the mitzvot without having to identify each little act.
And there's so many different contemporary ways to engage with the mitzvot. I think what I find growthful and helpful about them is that they're not generalized, that they are very concrete and specific. When I just hold the intention, be generous, sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. When I say, okay, there are mitzvot around how much of my income I am obligated to donate, and I'm sitting before the end of the year, the tax year, and I'm saying, okay, I've donated to the causes that I'm committed to, but I haven't donated enough yet. I've totaled it up. Ooh, I'm anxious about how much I'm saving and how much sweetheart, this is a mitzvah. Then it's not just about sort of what is subjectively meaningful or a subjective definition of it, but that's the place, I think, Esther, that you were talking about, of challenge. How will this practice that I didn't create stretch me and help me cultivate and grow into the person that I'm called to be in the world? If left to my own devices, I don't want to daven every day. I have better things to do, it feels like. I don't have time for this. What do you mean give up doing for a whole day of Shabbat? I haven't done my laundry yet, and I'm running out of socks, and there are always reasons to not. I'm a good person. Okay, great. I think that's, it's so valuable to distill what are the values that I'm seeking to, that are important in this world and that are shared across different religious traditions and secular humanist commitments and beliefs. And what is the specific path that Judaism is offering to teach me and train me and grow me in living these qualities and acting on them? And in this, in the Kabbalistic and Hasidic pieces that we're looking at, those practices are not only about cultivating these beautiful qualities of kindness and generosity that you were lifting up, Marilyn, so beautifully, but also how do these practices crack open this cosmic experience that my soul is part of, that my soul knows as home, but my body self forgets all the time because I'm flossing my teeth, or I'm late for a meeting, or there needs to be dinner on the table. But each of these moments is a moment to connect with that root soul, that home on the divine tree. How would that change my life, your life, to connect with that? I think that's the thing that that feels challenging and compelling to me right now, especially when there's so many challenges and pain that I see in the world, struggle in ourselves. What are the opportunities to say a blessing, to enact a mitzvah as a window into this big, connected, beautiful, radiant picture And that piece that when I do it, I'm drawing down more divine energy into the world. I am releasing the hidden sparks that have been trapped up until that moment. So I'm also participating in healing the universe itself, in bringing more divinity into this material world. Wow. Not bad. Esther.
Also, the importance, I think, of knowing that there's always a next challenge, that we're not going to run out of challenges. And that's very, very important to being not only a fulfilled and good human being, but also remaining human.
Beautiful. So important. And it's interesting that what I heard Jacqueline voicing and what I hear you voicing is the same set of possibilities and limitations, but it takes work to shift from they're constant challenges. I will never reach a place of completion. Forget it. I'm giving up. To be able to reframe it as, oh, I will never reach a state of completion. I'm just going to take the next step and the next step. And there's no expectation that I will ever reach perfection and wholeness. Oh, what a relief. So I can do the next mitzvah. I can practice again and mess it up and practice again. It takes work, I think, and I think a lot of us have been trained to see the failure as opposed to the possibility, and noticing that, again, without judgment. Okay, that got in there. I've absorbed that sense of, the sense of defeat when the challenge looks limitless. How can I so kindly and gently notice that voice is there and shift the frame to this place of how beautiful that there are limitless opportunities and that growth is a beautiful and constant unfolding, and that there is no need to compare myself with where somebody else is. We are each in the process of our own soul journey. And where am I today? And even my own journey is not a linear path. The Hasidim beautifully articulated, and I taught this morning in the meditation, that we move forward, we fall back. We move forward, we fall back. That is the inherent nature of the journey. And that in the places where we fall, where we fail, where we feel disconnected, there is deep learning to discover there too. It's essential to the process. Esther.
I don't know if I'm unmuted.
Yes.
No. I was just going to say, you said way beyond what I was going to say, but just the joy of knowing that there's always more work to do is key to the meaning of I don't know how to use the Hebrew words. I know there are Hebrew words for this, but to the joy of striving for a meaningful life. Anyway.
Beautiful.
There's a joy in knowing there's always more work. It's not just work is not just oppressive. It's opportunity.
Beautiful.